What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we are here with Joe of Urne. Thank you so much for being here today, man. It's great to have you here.
Cool. No, thank you. Thank you for having me, man. I'm buzzing.
Yeah, it's exciting to have you here. We got the brand new full-length album, Serpent and Spirit, coming out June
hmm
25th via Spine Farm Candlelight.
Yeah.
You just want to talk about like how the
hmm
making of this album was, and was there kind of like a preconceived idea of what you wanted Serpent and Spirit to sound like, or was there like a lot of improvising involved?
Well, I think we had an EP a few years ago, which from that moment, like that was kind of like we started Earn off the back of an old band. We just needed to kind of get that style out of our system. But me and Angus and Rich had a kind of clear style where we wanted it to go, and we wanted to kind of go back to our roots, what kind of made us buzzed to be like doing music when we were kids, like that feeling of like grabbing like Master of Puppets for the first time or whatever kind of classic album and being like, oh my God. So we kind of had that idea that we'd love to go back and try and make music that would make us so excited when we were young. So once we kind of, I think the first track might have been Serpent and Spirit, and kind of like things were a little bit longer. There was kind of, it was like less bluesy compared to like the EP, I guess. It was a more straight up metal. And once you kind of get that first track out of the way, I kind of know where we wanted to go. But I think a problem with us, we like a lot of music and a lot of bands. So it's kind of like it naturally comes out of you. And but yeah, once we kind of got a few tracks out of the way, we kind of knew what path we wanted to go down. It was making more of a straight up, just a really heavy record, like a heavy metal record.
So it's
Yeah, we kind of knew early on.
So it's fair to say that the Mountain of Gold EP that you released back in 2018, that wasn't like a preview or like the trailer or like a representation of the direction Urne would go into, right?
Yeah, it was just myself and Angus were in a band before, and like to some kind of level, and yeah, it was a bit more like kind of bluesy, more doom stoner sort of stuff, and it's just we'd spent 4 years touring that. It just kind of that was still in our system, I guess. But we knew we kind of wanted to make more of a metal sound. So yeah, I wouldn't say. I mean, people like that EP, and I think it's fine. But when you listen to the album, it's not even close. Like the album is us writing what we wanted to write.
Do you feel that the first two singles that you released, The Palace of Devils and Desolate Heart, maybe serve as a good representation of what we could be expecting for the entirety of this album, or is that just one little taste, one side of Urne?
I would say they're both very different, and it's both like it's weird for like it's like it feels like Wolves has one song that it really partners up with on this album, and Desolate Heart has a song it partners up with. And it's 8 tracks, and I feel like each song has another track that it partners up with. But I think it shows a lot of what is on this album. But there's definitely like a lot more. When people hear it, I think people will be like, "Oh Jesus!" Like, oh, they've gone and done this, and they've gone and done that, and yeah. But I think Desolate Heart really touches on every sort of style within the album. I think Desolate Heart is all of it into one song.
Do you think, I'm probably asking this way too far in advance, being that this album isn't even out yet, but do you think that by discovering yourselves with this album that this is maybe the direction that Urne would go into in the future, or do you want to experiment a little bit further?
I mean, it's like, I think there's definitely, we want to kind of maybe experiment, but you need to know when. Like a few years ago, 10, 15 years ago, like Trivium released that album that blew them up, and then the next album was like, no, it's all clean singing and whatnot, and people didn't really like it, so they kind of had to go back, and then the next album was good, and it's knowing when to do it, and we're into like a lot of kind of proggier stuff, and we can play, and it's just we can write the songs, but it's just knowing when the time feels right. So I think there's definitely albums down like in the future we might start like incorporating some different stuff. But we've already started writing for album 2, and if anything, it's probably more like heavier and a lot more direct. But that's just 2 songs. I mean, now we've got them out of the way, and now we're going to probably go and write 5-10-minute songs or something. But I think further down the line, a few albums down the line, we might start bringing some stuff in. Our drummer's obsessed with. He's like, we need to have some flutes, man. Like, and I'm like, I'm not sure he can have flutes on a heavy metal album.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of folk metal bands out there, and like I could easily see some like folk or traditional instrumentation incorporated in an Urne album. Like from listening to this, I think it caters along the lines of bands like I think people who listen to bands like Corrosion of Conformity could appreciate this, but people who like bands like Crowbar or Sleep or Neurosis could appreciate this. But I think by having like some more folk instrumentation in there, I think that can make you stand out a little bit more. Whether it works or not, I think it's going to be memorable one way or another.
I mean, we've just got to learn how to play it. But I think with him, he's got this kind of vision that, you know, the smoke's going to come up from the stage, and him and the geese from Jethro Tull are going to have like a flute off or something, something stupid. It's going to be like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, going off across the stage. But that might happen somewhere down the line. But none of us play the flute, so we'll see what happens.
Start learning.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Oh, and I love the Metallica coffee cup, by the way.
Yeah, and coffee for all, you know. I almost picked up another, like I follow like Los Angeles Chargers, and I was like, oh, I better not, because I don't know what people feel about with certain sport teams in America. So I brought out the Metallica cup instead.
As a New Yorker, you made the right move there. But
yeah.
But when it comes to like, has there ever been a time where maybe like lyrics or maybe like a subject matter could influence the direction of the sound of Urne, or has music always needed to be there before lyrics come into play?
Do you know what I think? With there's certain things, there's certain bits I've kind of like wrote with the kind of I knew what the lyrics were going to be like, and it kind of catered to that a bit, and some bits it was just right, and it just happened to work perfectly. But like I'm, you know, the sort of the lyrical side of it, it's you know, it's someone caught in like a really desperate world between, I know it sounds thing, but between the good and evil, but it's the person's been put into like a world of like purgatory. But it's in my vision of it, my world, it's a really dry world, and like, I'm massively into like Western films, so that really dry landscape, and it's just like one person, but with this kind of evil like entities that are on there, and it was just that in my mind. So that's why the last track, I had this Spanish guitar piece for years, which at the end of the album you can hear, and it's, you know, it's obviously like a certain tip of the hat to some of the classic scores, but then we kind of add our own thing, and that was something I felt was fitting, because that really, to me, that describes that world very, and it's not like the most clean, perfect recording, because if it was, it just wouldn't work. If you listen back to like the old classic westerns, it's got this kind of graininess to this kind of tinny sound, and that's something I wanted on there, because I felt like it captured the world that I was thinking. And it's really hard when you're writing lyrics to kind of, it's in your head, but trying to put it out, I find that really hard. So that's why I just write it all, you know. Trying to speak about it, it's harder for me to do.
Yeah, it almost seems like I always love it when art influences another source of art, because it almost like when it comes to inspiration, it's just like a never-ending rabbit hole, and you could really like go in depth with it. Would you say that like with exploring these with, you know, Western films and these ideas of good versus evil and purgatory, is this almost like you responding to it, or your interpretation of the art, or are you expressing the art as it was originally expressed?
I mean, I think it's me trying to like just find a way to express it. I mean, it was a hard one, to be fair. It was a hard one to kind of grab onto, like trying to make it all fit together with, like I say, with the lyrics, with the music, but with the art as well on the album front. Now it's a bit different. I've got this really dry picture of this dry world in my mind, but if you probably look in the artwork, there's a lake, but loads of bits are missing. So it's meant to kind of like know the upside down from Stranger Things. Like if you kind of turn it around, there's two different worlds. So, but it's a hard one trying to piece it all together. Like I'm probably swaying away from the question, but yeah, trying to find something like with the music that fits with the lyrics. I don't know. It's just a really hard thing for me to kind of put together. Like, I know some people go and write 8 different subjects, 8 different songs about 8 different things, but I needed to write something that I can like relate to. And with this album, with the lyrics on this album, I was kind of writing lyrics without knowing what all the songs would sound like, and I needed to base it off something. And I had if you've seen the press release, I had like a brief bad period for like 2 months. And that was enough for me to realise, fuck, no way, never again, you know, trying to keep myself to myself, not talking to family, fucking just really confusing myself over absolutely nothing. And that kind of gave me a look into a sort of, I felt like a world that I'd never been in before. And thankfully it was only fucking 2 months, you know. Sadly, like, people go through it their whole life. And having that kind of 2 months, I felt like opened up everything for me to kind of put into this album. But again, it's hard. I find it hard to talk about the lyrics and the stories. I could write about it probably, but talking about it, I still can't get my head around it. If that makes sense, I'm really, really sorry. It's probably really long-winded.
I completely.
As you could probably tell, it's hard for me to talk about, you know.
Well, I completely understand, because I went to art school, and you know, I'm a visual artist, and like, it's always easy to make the art and express it, but when it comes to presenting it and talking about it, also let alone defending it, it really is almost like another art in itself. Explaining your art almost takes another talent. That's why I've always like admired graphic designers, because you know, people want to say, oh, it's corporate art, they only do it for the money. I'm like, yeah, but they could explain their art and get their point across, and people are going to have that image burned into their mind one way or another. That's incredible artwork right there, whether you think it has meaning or not. Like, so I've always said that explaining your art is as much of an art as making it. So
yeah, I'm still getting used to doing that side, probably. Like, this is all fairly new to me, so it's something that I should probably get better trying to, before I go into interviews, trying to just get everything clear in my head, instead of like going off on like a tangent talking about it.
For us interviewers,
yeah, I'm still not.
For us interviewers, going off on a tangent is a good thing. Trust me, nothing is more heartbreaking than asking asking 3 questions and you're only 2 minutes into the interview. So.
Yeah, no, that's cool. But yeah, like, I definitely, it's a hard thing to talk about. But not because it was something that was like, oh my God, it was such a hard period of my time. You know, like I say, it was a brief period that I felt thing, but still trying to process it up there to get it to come out there and make sense. I'm still not at that stage yet.
Yeah, I think, well, in the end, art speaks for itself as well. I feel like art is life, and when you present it to the world, the art is a life of its own, and you're simply its humble guide in a way. So I think, and what I think is great about this album is that it does speak for itself. It's very raw and it's organic, and I think it has many ways of being interpreted as well. I think Serpent and Spirit is definitely an experience, as much of it, more so than just an album.
Yeah, totally. That's good to hear. I think we definitely wanted the kind of to, like, myself years ago, myself and Angus, funny enough, you got that t-shirt on Silosis. Myself and Angus used to be in a band called Chapters. We toured with Silosis loads, and it was like Desolate Heart. Like, every song was like Desolate Heart, and it would all blend into each other, and there'd be violins, like, and girls singing and pianists and whatnot. And it was I want to take people on a journey, and at the end of it, I want them to be like, fucking hell. So we kind of tried to do that with Serpent and Spirit. We wanted it to be, there's only eight tracks, and I'm sure people will be like, oh, fucking hell, they must be like 3-minute tracks, perfect. But they're not, obviously, as you know. But we definitely wanted to take people on the journey. I hope people stick with it until the end.
Definitely. And I think this album is also, and I mean this as a compliment, it's not very shuffle friendly. Like, I feel like if you want to get engaged in this album, you have to start off with a Serpent and Spirit and end with a Tomb So Frail. and like you need
Okay, yeah, that's wicked.
yeah, like I feel like it is a journey, and if you were to start off with Memorial and maybe end with Envy the Dead or something like that, you might kind of lose
Hmm.
some context in a way. So I think there's a
Yeah,
lot to be
definitely.
explored just from listening to the album start to finish. And the final question I wanted to ask you is a lot of people have when analyzing the music, I love getting into genre debates with people, but a lot of people would categorize, I feel like, Urne as to be doom metal and kind of have that sort of
Hmm.
doom effect to it. And I've heard people call stoner rock or stoner metal. I don't understand what makes stoner rock stoner metal, because not
Yeah.
I've gotten stoned to things that sound nothing like High on Fire. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I get high to Aphex Twin, but like when it
yeah.
comes to doom metal, like doom as well, like Paradise Lost or Catatonia sounds very different from a band like Yob or Bellwitch. So like to you, what would make something doom if you categorize yourself in that sort of category?
Oh, do you know? I mean, I always like with Urne. It's weird. I feel like there's some doom elements for sure. I think there's a lot more, but I guess it's just the overall vibe you get off of it. I mean, straight away, a lot of people would just say doom would be like slower, kind of. There's certain chords you have to play, and certain things will be played in a certain way. But I guess if you kind of create an atmosphere, it doesn't matter if it's slow, because some of the songs, like I find it a bleak, doomed to be quite bleak and that, and like the myself and Angus were in a band called Hang the Bastard, and we used to play with a lot of doom, sludge, like all that sort of kind of world of bands, and there's a certain vibe, and certainly when you see a quality band do it live, you're like, there's a vibe you get from it, and there's some moments on the Urne album where there's like this kind of bleak, desperate sort of vibe, and I think it helps where the recording's kind of raw as well. Not a perfect recording. It would kind of lose. It would lose some of that. It would lose some of that atmosphere. But yeah, I don't know what makes Doom. Yeah, I just think I always just consider Doom to be quite a bleak. But there's quite a lot of, like, when you say Paradise Lost, um, some of that stuff, even though there's a certain tempo with it and there's a certain vibe. There's some great like melodic stuff. There's always been great melodic stuff for it, and there's always like a hook, always something you can grab onto. And there's a couple of moments I would say on the Urne album, Moon in Sky, where I've kind of do like a melodic kind of chorus, and something that people can catch on to. And like it doesn't sound like Paradise Lost by any means. I mean, that guy's got a fucking much better voice than I'll ever have. But it's still getting a melody within something so dark and like moody and bleak. But yeah, I think the doom and sort of stoner vibe. I mean, I've read like reviews I've like read of this. People are like, I have no idea. There's thrash, there's prog, there's doom, there's stoner, someone was like, there's some punk elements. I don't have no idea. I don't think we're going to be walking around like Blink-182. I think they probably mean the more kind of classic stuff. But yeah, I think it's hard to kind of pigeonhole us. I just think our whole thing was being inspired by everything heavy that we loved our whole life. And I just think it's easy just to call it heavy metal, just putting it all into one thing,
Yeah.
because it covers everything.
Yeah,
Do
definitely.
you know what I mean? I just think that
Yeah.
I think there's moments, if you listen to the album, there's bits of Priest, there's Machine Head, there is punky bits, there's Sabbath bits, and it's just being inspired. Like, I mean, we've been doing, I'm in my 30s, and you just grab on everything you can grab onto, chuck it onto a canvas. You're being in a band, you have a blank canvas, you can do whatever you want. Chuck it all on there and see what comes out. And I find it weird now if people start a band and they're going to sound exactly like another fucking band. Like something come up on Shuffle earlier, and it was like a deathcore band or whatever it is, and it just sounded exactly like fucking 200 other bands doing it around the world. And I'm just like,
Well, you're damned if you do, damned
what
if
do
you
you get from
don't.
that?
If you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like if you it's like if you experiment with your sound too much, you're inconsistent. If you're very consistent with your sound, you're repetitive. So you just have to go with your gut instinct. That's always the right answer. And yeah, you know what the beautiful thing about doom metal is that you could be a half hour late and make it before the first song ends. So but
Yeah. Well, as you know, on our album, there's some fucking long ones.
yeah, but not really doom length, not in the doom time zone. Your songs aren't 27 and a half
Oh yeah.
minutes. But
So that the guy Chris who recorded us, he's from Conan, and he recorded a band who, I don't know the length of time they tracked a 20-hour song. They just left it on droning. It might be like a world record or something.
was it Sun?
And he was, I have no idea. I have not. I'll have to find out. But he was just like, yeah, I just went to sleep, and they were just droning on like one note. Fucking no way. I just can't do with that stuff.
That's incredible.
So yeah.
So before we go,
easy to play.
Before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. And is there just anything else with Urne that you would like to promote for the release of this new album? Like any tours lined up for when this?
I mean, actually, sadly, at the moment, we're in a bit of a shit situation because we're in a big lockdown's extended. We were meant to be on tour, so that's going to be postponed. But we have a really good tour to announce at the end of the year. I can't say yet. If this was in 2 weeks' time or a week's time, I'd be able to say. So we've got that. We've got some festivals coming throughout. I mean, if people visit like the Facebook Urne Band and Instagram's Urne Band and Twitter, like you'll be able to find all the information there. I just hope people check the album out, give it time, and enjoy what they hear.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Urne. Be sure to check out the new album, Serpent and Spirit, coming out via Spine Farm Candlelight Records. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.